Hey, what's up? Today, Landon and I are going to show you how we did a polished concrete overlay on the floor of our new office. Check it out. Okay, the first thing we did was we poured 100% solids epoxy across the entire floor, and we broadcast sand into it. And once that's cured, we're going to get all the sand up, and that'll leave a really rough floor for the concrete overlay to stick to. We actually had help from two different companies on this floor. Increte Systems gave us a bunch of level top polishable overlay, and then Collomix gave us the Collomix LevMix to mix all of it. Okay, so we start things off by adding water to the mixer. Then after we add the water, we're going to add dry powdered pigment to color the mix. Once the color is mixed up with the water, you add the Increte level top polishable overlay. You can actually mix 3 bags at a time in the Collomix LevMix. We're going to put in 3 bags of overlay, 3 bags of color, and whatever water we need. So this is a pretty simple process. We just dump it on the floor. It's really cool though, because the mixer rolls over to where you need it and you just dump it out. You can see here that Troy's using a 3/8 inch thick gauge rake. And what the rake is doing is putting all the material down at exactly 3/8 inch thick across the whole floor. And it's a pretty straightforward process. We mix 3 bags, we dump 3 bags out, and then we run the gauge rake over it. You can see we're able to walk on this floor because we're wearing metal spiked shoes. Once we pour it on the floor and we gauge rake it across the floor, we actually walk back into it and roll the spiked roller through the whole floor. And this does 2 things. It gets bubbles out of the floor, and it also kind of helps move it around a little bit to get the gauge rake marked out.
Yeah, and the different thing about this mix is that in the past we've done polished overlays without any aggregate, and this actually has colored aggregate in it.
You know, whenever you grind and polish other overlays, it's kind of like a really creamy finish. It doesn't really look like concrete. So in theory, at least on this one, once you grind the cream off the top, it's going to expose that aggregate that is in this mix that is not any typical self-leveling overlay.
Right.
Okay, so once we finish pouring the overlay, we let it sit overnight, and you came back the next day to polish it.
Right. So we loaded in. Again, everything's under construction here in the building. We brought a pretty decent sized machine in. It's a 25-inch propane machine.
It's kind of funny watching you load that in.
And it's heavy. It's a heavy machine. And our goal to start with was we were thinking that we would use kind of a 50 grit to a 100, 400, 800 grit in Phoenix pads.
So like a 4 or 5 step process.
Like a 4 or 5 step process. And always the secret with polishing is that you always want to start high to see where you can achieve the cut you want to. If it doesn't work there, then you go down. So we first started with a 60-80 grit diamond.
We're kind of being delicate because we're actually, in the past with other overlays, we've actually cut all the way through the overlay. You're trying to be a little delicate with the floor because you're a little worried about grinding all the way through it.
Right.
But was that didn't seem to be possible.
Right, and the 60-80s didn't do much at all. So then we put on 30-40 grit diamonds, and we stayed on that. We probably cut the floor 4 times with 30-40 grit. And then we went 60-80, and then 50 grit resins, 100, 400, 800.
It sounds so confusing, but all we did was continually move to a finer grit.
And the reason why you have to move up in grits like that is because each grit creates a scratch, and the next grit gets that scratch out. So by the time you get higher up in grit, your scratches are gone and your actual organic material is shining.
So I guess the process is to step through finer grits of diamonds from your 30-40s until you get to like 800 or 1500, and that's where it will be shiny.
Yeah.
When do you actually edge the floor? I mean, you can see here that Rob started to edge the floor.
We usually just take a hand grinder and we go right on our hands and knees all around the edges.
What grit was that you started edging it?
Well, typically we either start before or after 30-40 grit. Okay. This one we did after because we were just anxious to see what the floor was going to do. And it's important with polishing too to have some type of system that you're attacking. If you'll see where we kind of go in our lines and we move the machine over, if you go in all different directions and all type of random ways, you're not going to get the look that you want out of the floor.
So once the whole process is finished, you finally get to put we call it a guard, Increte polish guard is what it's called. People sometimes call it a sealer, but it's not really a sealer. It's just a breathable, really thin film that goes over the floor, and it gives you a window where you can clean spills up before something can actually stain the floor. So how are you putting it down? What are you doing here?
We just use a microfiber mop, just a simple pump sprayer, put the guard in the pump sprayer, and then on the bottom of the machine, we actually put buffing pads, and we buff the floor.
I didn't notice though, he didn't use a pump sprayer. We didn't have a pump sprayer, and we wouldn't do this on a regular job, obviously, but we didn't have a pump sprayer. So I gave him a water bottle and he poked a hole in the top of it and squirted out of the water bottle.
That works too.
Okay, I just want to say thanks to Collomix for letting us use the LevMix mixer on this one. Thanks to Increte Systems for giving us the level top polishable overlay for this job. Both of those products are spectacular. So if you want to learn more about them, we'll leave info in the description below.
Thanks guys for listening.